As with any developed country, industrialization is inevitable. Along with it comes the consequences of unsustainable energy. One of the most polluted countries in the world due to its industrialization is China, which led me to the question, to what extent has industrialization in China contributed to air pollution over the past 50 years? My claim is that industrialization has negatively impacted the environment while also boosting the economy. And my solution is to replace unsustainable energy sources with sustainable ones. To give a brief background on Chinese industrialization, as shown in the graph, 80% of the population was employed in agriculture in the 1960s and about 40% in the 2000s. As you can see, it's declining and industry and services are on the rise. One of the ways that China has contributed to air pollution is through releasing primary and secondary pollutants into the atmosphere. Primary pollutants are those that are directly emitted into the atmosphere. As shown in the graph, 48% are carbon monoxide, 16% are sulfur oxides, 16% are nitrogen oxides, and 20% are made of particulate matter and volatile organic compounds, all of which are harmful to one's health and deal irreparable damage to the atmosphere. Secondary pollutants are formed when primary pollutants react with particles in the atmosphere. As seen in the visuals, there are natural contributors to primary pollutants, but the largest are transportation, fuel combustion, and industrial processes, all of which China has. Due to the fact that China concentrates its cities and urban population, the effects of these pollutants are seen more drastically. According to the Urban Transformation of the Developing World by Mark R. Montgomery, a population researcher, graphs B and D show that the urban population will exponentially increase and the percent of urban population will also increase. Now, in relation to the levels of pollution, it can be seen in these graphs from the Center for International Climate Research that the carbon emissions of China are greater than the USA, Europe, and India, and it also constitutes mostly of coal, which is an unsustainable energy source. 3 regions of China that are heavily concentrated are the Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei area, the Yangtze River Delta, and the Pearl River Delta. The Vice Minister of Environmental Protection, Wu Zhiqian, stated though only taking up 8% of China's total land areas, the 3 zones consume 42% of coal, 52% of gasoline and diesel, and produce 55% of steel and 40% of cement for this country every single year. Since China's cities and pollution levels are highly concentrated, this leads to adverse health effects. Over 1 million people die every year in China from air pollution-related illnesses. Quinn Shu and his colleagues revealed that toxicological evidence suggests that exposure of PM 2.5 can cause lung inflammation and affect pulmonary immune function, which only recently became regulated by the government. As you can see in this graph, the western side of China is highly concentrated with PM 2.5, whereas compared with the western side, the eastern hemisphere, it's not. To prove a correlation between levels of PM 2.5 and health implications in China, the research group performed a study including info from ERs in major Chinese cities. They proved that there indeed was a correlation between the levels of particulate matter and respiratory illness. As seen in the chart from WHO, 40% died from heart disease, 40% from stroke, 11% from COPD, 6% from lung cancer, and 3% from respiratory infections. Additionally, as found in the Journal of Environmental Health, in developing countries, almost 4 million children die each year from acute respiratory infections associated with indoor and outdoor air pollution, and environmental threats generally stem from industrial pollution such as air pollution and toxic waste. They also state that the poor tend to suffer more from pollution because of a higher exposure to pollutants in crowded areas, showing that not only is pollution an issue, but also the age gap between the rich and poor, causing some to suffer more. And bringing it back to my question, to what extent has industrialization in China contributed to air pollution over the past 50 years? My claim is that industrialization in China has negatively affected the environment while also boosting the economy. One possible solution would be the implementation of regulations on air pollution. However, China has already tried this, and it was found that not many people actually followed the regulations, so there weren't any actual benefits. This brought me to my final conclusion, which is to replace unsustainable energy sources with sustainable ones. As seen in the two images here, the effect that coal mining and coal production has on the environment is clearly demonstrated by the altered landscape and the polluted air shown. According to Margaret Thatcher's speech to the UN General Assembly, she demands that every nation will need to make its contribution to the world effort. With China, the lead CO2 emitter, participating in this effort, a real change could be made. Some implications of this would be, the two major implications of this solution would be the cost of tearing down old mines and factories and the cost of building new sustainable energy sources like dams, solar power, wind power, and nuclear reactors. There could also be a loss of jobs. However, investing in clean energy sources will prove to benefit the atmosphere greatly in the future, and more jobs could be created in the new facility. Thank you. What questions do you have?
Thank you. I do have two questions for you. First up, how did you select the strategies you used to gather information about your research?
We learned the strategies in the library one day, and they taught us to use the virtual library card and also reliable sources such as scholar.google.com.
Okay, and if you had more time, what additional research would you have conducted?
I would actually conduct more research on how particulate matter and volatile organic compounds would affect the ozone layer, because I wasn't able to exactly fit that in my essay without it becoming too detailed.
All right, you're done. Breathe.